there's so much information there because from a spectrum we can understand how hot something is, of what its motions of the gas are.
Some of its age.
Its age, exactly. All these things we can't get from a picture alone. So we're building these into kind of a catalog of these ultraviolets we're going to use to understand which are the best star-planet systems to search for life.
And so how long does it actually take to get that data back?
It happens in real time. It comes down on the telemetry link that's on board the rocket. So we see it. We use the real-time to video to decide how to point the rocket during the flight.
Yes, so Scott was talking. Where to align?
It's like the world's most expensive video game. And we have
just the rocket to align on the target, and so where to align.
It's like the world's most expensive video game. And we have our students. This is always a historical way that we do things in the project, is that we put the student right in the deep end, and they're the ones that are real-time display and are driving the rocket in real time to make the observation.
So they either get their PhD or they don't.
That's right. Or there's a tremendous amount of international resources wasted.
When you're doing this adjustment, once the rocket is launched and you're essentially starting to get into suborbital space, you guys then take over all of that pointing and stuff like that,
That's right. It happens at about 100 seconds after launch. Control system, so we go up with the pointy end up, and then our telescope at the back, so it flips over during the flight. There's a door that opens and our telescope points towards the target, and then we can start steering in the aperture.
And then do you have any control of it coming back down, or essentially it gets there, you're done?
So all we can do is control the pointing during the flight. We can also turn on and off the instrument if something were, knock on wood, we've never had to do that.
It'll be fine this time, don't worry.
But the rest of it all happens on timers. So at about 450 seconds after the observations start, the door will close and the whole payload starts to spin as it re-enters the atmosphere, and it spins to distribute the heat so it doesn't melt part of the rocket as it comes in.
So on the long side of the rocket, essentially, right?
That's right,
You go out then the day after and recover your instrument?
That's right. So there's a helicopter that's on site, and we pick up everything for this launch. We pick up, it's a two-stage motor, so we pick up the booster, and we go first to go get the science payload, because it has the most it doesn't like to be sitting outside for a while.
Yeah, because it has to be very cooled, and it is a telescope, and a telescope that discusses.
So we go out the next morning, and we'll probably do a couple of flyovers to go find it, and then we'll land. I believe we're going to sling it up underneath the helicopter and carry it back here, and then we'll test it.
So do you test it? You do have to test it when you come back?
We'll test it when we come back before we box it up.
And then do you do, depending on that status, do you do any slight adjustments or fixing, or kind of depends?
Not a liveness test for when it comes back, because NASA wants to know if things survived and the status of the instrument when we bring it back.
Okay, and then any other work that may be needed would happen back in the lab.
That's right.
Great. Well, look, so the second launch is scheduled for the 4th of July?
4th of July.
And then the third launch is the 12th of July, correct?
That's right. Yep.
And those windows are launch windows for each of those?
That's right. I think each has 3 days that we can do. I think the conditions here have been really very nice. I say in this planned, but yeah, we've got a 3-day backup in case.
Well, look, it's great to have, and we look forward to seeing Deuce in orbit looking at Alpha Centauri.
Absolutely.
So we're outside mission control. This is the Not just the rocket firing, but the rocket taking off and seeing the glory going into space. So we will have multiple cameras, we will have multiple action shots as we get closer to that time. So for those who missed, now you're probably waiting for a rocket to take off in about 2 minutes. We had an initial 30-minute delay added at the beginning, right at the beginning as we went live. Now, these delays happen all the time. The Space Launch System, for instance, this is NASA's new moon rocket. They were trying to test just the filling up part. This wasn't actually the launch, what they call the wet rehearsal, delayed multiple times, actually delayed 3 times, fully plus time during the day to make sure all the checks, everything is working. You know, when you hop on an airplane, if you've ever seen, there's a lot of checks the pilots do to make sure everything's working. The science is making sure the airspace, all the checks, everything is working. You know, when you hop on an airplane, if you've ever seen, there's a lot of checks the pilots do to make sure everything's working. This is just like this, just a tad more. There's a few more things that the science is making sure the airspace is clear. It's making sure the surrounding land is clear. Now it's making sure the flight trajectory is understood. It's making sure the winds, the weather, the science instrument, because if the science isn't ready, the rocket's not going to launch, because the whole point here for this very first launch is launching what's called an X-ray quantum calorimeter. Now this is measuring X-ray light galaxy. Now, when you think of X-ray light, you think of broken bones going to the hospital. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's still the same type of light. And in fact, lots of things in our X-ray light. Black holes are popular at emitting a little bit of X-ray. There's a lot of X-ray emission or X-ray light that emits from the center of our galaxy. And that's one of the critical reasons why this mission is happening. Looking at the southern parts of the Milky Way, where the center of our galaxy is located, and you want to understand what is this very energetic stuff emitting from our galaxy, you can only see that in space, because luckily our Earth's atmosphere blocks most of the X-ray emission. Otherwise, we'd be bombarded with X-ray radiation every day, and we probably wouldn't have humans here to talk about this launch. What we will be seeing later is that preparation for that launch about to take place. And as we were just hearing from Kevin, so Kevin is one of the mission scientists. He's the whole program scientist for all 3 missions, but he in particular called Cysteine and mission 3 called Deuce. Now, both of these will be looking at ultraviolet light. So this is one of my favorite things. I like to use ultraviolet light to study stars that explode. Team is doing is looking at ultraviolet light from something called Alpha Centauri. So if you go on a dark night in the southern skies and you look towards the Southern Cross, now there's 2 bright stars near the Southern Cross, and we call those the pointers. Is Alpha Centauri. This is the nearest star to us. Now it's 4.2 light years away. So a light year is kind of how long light takes to travel in a year. It's kind of used as a measuring tool in some way. What's really important, though, here in astronomy terms is the light that has left that star took 4.2 years to reach us here on Earth. So it left 4 years ago and is only now reaching us here on Earth. So when next week, when Kevin is looking at these stars, they're seeing light as it was emitted 4 years ago. So they're quite looking back to what they mean. And they'll be using that information to see the properties of the star, the ages. Maybe, is there an exoplanet around it? This is a big topic in astronomy. Are other stars? And Alpha Centauri, that nearest star to us, is a really important target because it is the closest thing that we can possibly have to us to study this, obviously, besides our own solar system. Unique our solar system is. What does it mean? Are there other Earth-like planets? You know, this is the question we're always asked. Are there other things living out there? One of the ways to study this is, are there other planets out there? Do they potentially have one of the best targets to look at is our neighbor star called Alpha Centauri. And you can only do Southern Spaceport, the Arnhem Space Center. And so we're going to go start to see now that instrument up close, being tested and ready to see the very spaceport, the Arnhem Space Center. And so we're going to go start to see now that instrument up close. So we were able to go with Kevin earlier today to see his instrument being tested and ready to see the very technical detail of how do you put a telescope, something that is kind of sensitive. Does have glass. We know telescopes don't like to break. How do you put a telescope on a rocket and make sure it comes back in one piece? Well, it's a little bit tricky, and we were able to see Kevin up close to actually see how this all worked. But before, I think it's kind of interesting, we were just having a few questions real quick, just to remind people. For those people who are tuning in to already see a rocket launching, we did have a 30-minute delay at the beginning of the show. And again, the normal operations. So we're now just reached the T-minus 27 and counting mark. So far, that is on track. For those who were tuning in earlier or watching this pre-recorded, I heard some rain above us. We've been fighting rain on and off a bit throughout the day. Rain is actually not that big of an issue. The winds so far appear to be cooperating, just looking at the person who's making sure. So far, the winds are behaving. The rain seems to have mostly stopped. And as of now, we are on track for Australia's first commercial launch and first time from a commercial spaceport. So we'll be doing that in hopefully 26 minutes. And as we get closer to the site, we'll be bringing you live images for as long as we want. And we'll actually hopefully be talking to some of the people on mission 2 and 3, because once launch 1 happens tonight, it doesn't stop there. The warning for launch 2 happening on 4 July, and then they get ready for the third team coming on 12 July. So we're going to go see Kevin now in his experiment to see what it actually looks like to have a telescope mounted on it and be coming down via parachute later next week.
If there's a little bit of residual gas in there, you can actually create an arc. With a small amount of gas. It'll act like a conductor. And if that happens, then things can break down and melt quickly.
I can imagine that.
So there are all sorts of inhibits on to turn on if it's not at high vacuum. And in fact, we actually during flight we take this when we're arming the vehicle. We take this plate off and we put a little cheater plug in there. Allows it to override that circuit, so it will turn on in flight no matter what.
Oh, okay.
But then it's very dicey, because if somebody accidentally turns it on, it would be very bad. So it's like it's only by humans at that point, which is the scary thing.
Which is always a trick, So the telescope is here?
That's right. So the telescope starts here. It points out this. This is what we call the shutter door. If you see, it's on a thread here, and there's a hinge down here. And in flight, this motor it'll run the thread down and open the door this way. And look out in the
looking out this way.
That's right.
So then so the telescope mirror width is maximized.
That's right. It takes up the whole thing. The diameter here is 22 inches. And takes up the whole thing.
I assume that was it.
It's a full half-meter mirror, which is diameter here is 22 inches, and the mirror is like 20 and a half inches. So it's as big as we could possibly go. We wanted to make these measurements of Alpha Cent, and we realized that we couldn't have done it with previous technology that you could have put on a rocket. And so we said, okay, well actually, if we use these advanced technologies, we can build this instrument that will have, throughput greater than what we'd ever been able to do before, and we can actually do this science even on a rocket payload. And so we just, built it all together.
Nice. Well, look, so far it seems like it's true.
This is also this is the second science flight. We did a test science flight to observe an F-type star in November of last year from White Sands. NASA did not want this flight of these payloads.
Interesting.
Yes, they wanted payloads that had a high probability of scientific success. Which I completely understand.
You don't want 3 data because.
That's right. This was a big investment, and so we wanted to make sure that we got the bang for the buck.
That makes sense, right? I mean, because it has not just been you guys coming here; it has been
the whole. Exactly. Which has been fantastic.
Which normally you're just dealing with the individual experiment, right? In terms of especially operating from the U.S., we're here for these 3 major prize of the facilities, getting him here.
Exactly. And when we launched in the U.S., we basically just plugging our experiment into a process that is already happening. Created the process.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's beautiful. We have my former my almost to defend grad student now is back at home writing the paper on this data.
Awesome.
22 minutes.
So that is kind of the second payload that we'll start to see up close. Not for this launch, but on a second launch on 4 July. We'll then have the third launch on 12 July. Now, obviously, we weren't able to quite show the first experiment. That's because once it's integrated with the rocket, that's what you're seeing here on the launch pad. This is the integrated rocket. Now, you can just make out the gantry. That is the metal support structure on the left. So that is actually what's holding the rocket. Now, this is a sounding rocket. Now, what we mean by sounding rocket is it goes into orbit, but it doesn't do a full orbit around the Earth. You can also see a few of the raindrops still on the dry season rain we had earlier, but it will be blown off when that rocket takes off. Hopefully we still keep the camera, but that's someone else's problem. Now, as that rocket takes off, on the right, you can see there's actually going to be different stages. Go to an earlier shot that we had today of the rocket on the launch pad during the daytime, so we can see the different sections. There are multiple stages to this rocket. There are stages of the engine getting up. There are stages that just contain the science payload, and that's kind of what we saw in the lab earlier with Kevin. That is the part where the telescope, all the electronics. Now, the engine part, the motor part, is that first bottom part that you're seeing now, attached to the gantry on the left. And again, we apologize for the kind of distortion of rain on the lens, but that's what's happening with the rain, and we can't obviously have anyone down there to dry it off because it is a working site, and they are preparing for launch now just under 20 minutes. Scheduled for a launch 10 minutes ago, but that was pushed back through a 30-minute delay. Again, fairly normal. There's been no other changes or issues to this. It is a normal countdown, is an 8-hour process. So sometimes during that countdown, you have to make sure things are double-checked. Again, safety and success is the priority of Equatorial Launch for this mission. So that means sometimes you just have to delay things. But luckily, it's only 20 minutes to go, not even that, before we see this launch take place. Now, what you'll see is when it launches from our shots that you'll be seeing later, it will be launching towards the southwest. So as viewed from now, it's going to be going slightly off. Now we'll have further cameras back that will follow up for as long as we can. Now, this rocket actually does move fairly fast. Because it is a small sounding rocket, it does actually move quite quickly, accelerating will go. And now, sounding rockets are actually quite common. We're kind of used to these giant rockets, but a lot of these missions at places like NASA Wallops facility, who is the partner with Equatorial Launch Australia, they're launching this rocket or having the rocket launched. They do launch from all over. They've launched from Alaska, White Sands, New Mexico, Svalbard in Sweden, and almost everywhere in between. This initial launch, anywhere though. Usually when they've launched, it's been a government or national or military facility, so to speak, something not operated purely by a commercial. Part of the story and legacy about what we're seeing tonight. And that is Equatorial Launch Australia's vision was, if you build it, they will come. If you build a great facility, the requirements for what a rocket wants, you will have customers like NASA wanting to come to your facility. Now, it's not easy. When you build a spaceport, you have to have a few different bits of infrastructure. You have communications, you need to have data, you need to have electricity, power, places to houses. You know, you're building in somewhere that is one of the remote locations probably in the world, and you're building some of the most sophisticated experiments that scientists and engineers can do. Now, one of the great things about that is it gives unique possibilities. It prevents interesting challenges as well. And I think the team here at Equatorial Launch Australia has been working around the clock to make sure this facility is up to scratch, to make sure that you can think of, rethink of, check and recheck is done to make sure this launch has happened. And to make sure that when that rocket launches in now under 17 minutes, when they take over at 100 seconds, because that's the rough timeline, 100 seconds in, as the rocket's gone up, that's when science starts. That's when you start to reach enough altitude that the science can happen. Now, a peak altitude of about 350 kilometers, that's the planned apogee or height of the mission. Once there, that's when all of the science happens. Now, afterwards, after that rocket goes up, the rocket experiment will come back down. They will be parachuted safely back down to Australia. And this is part of the checks and work that Equatorial Launch Australia has to do. As this thing's happening, keep track of it. You can't just say, rocket went up, that's fine. No, that doesn't work. You actually have to figure out where it's going, where it's going to land. You have to recover it. Now, part of it is that when you're working with this, They're working with so many different people. Yes, they're working with NASA. Yes, they're working with the scientists. Yes, they're working with the team here. You have people from the Australian Space Agency, from CASA, the Civil Aviation Authority for airplane traffic. You have local emergency services making sure that everything is done possibly to keep people safe. This is an entire, both local and Australia effort to see how space in Australia is changing. You know, if you thought 5 years ago, would we be here to see a NASA rocket launching from Arnhem Land? You know, but was it really going to happen? Hard to say, but now it is. And I think this is an amazing thing. We're seeing so much growth in space. We have other companies as well. Southern looking to launch from the Eyre Peninsula near Port Lincoln. You have Gilmore Space in Queensland. You have missions. You have so many activity happening in Australia right now. Satellite Skycraft missions. You have so many activity happening in Australia right now. This is kind of the symbol of what's happening, is that we are now starting to launch rocket. I mean, I think that's just kind of an amazing thing to be able to think of when people dream of what is going into space, what is happening. It is now happening here in Australia. When you're thinking about what can you study at university, math or physics or engineering, you can do that. But the science of actually getting a rocket into orbit is more than just the rocket itself. And I like to emphasize that point. There are people here from and skill sets to make this happen. And this is the broader part of it. Can you build a rocket company and not know anything about economics? I'm an astronomer. That's my background. I like to study supernova. I only have to be accurate. It doesn't make for a very good job in other cases. If I have to say your bank account's good to within $1 billion, I probably wouldn't keep a job. You need those people to be accurate. You need those people to be skilled. People from so many different backgrounds and skill sets from all over Australia. Quite literally, there are people from Ballarat, Melbourne, local, Darwin, and anywhere in between, making sure has had all the equipment necessary to be successful. And one of the part of that story is working with the traditional owners of the land. Now, we heard at the beginning from Jarwa, and he is one of the traditional owners. And space, as I said, in Australia isn't starting today. It started 60,000 years ago. And this mission builds on people who have lived on this continent for so long and quite literally observed changes in the sky with their own eyes. And they're now going to be part of the story going forward. What that means, not just for space, not just for NASA, not just for the science that is just happening for this single experiment, but for the people who have lived here and are going to be part of that story for decades to come. And so I'm here with Jawa. Thanks for joining and having us here. Where are we? And you know, we know we're at a rocket launch site, but this is the Yolngu people, correct?
It is. It is the traditional country for my clan, the Gumach.
Yep.
And we're at a place called Korkula.
Korkula, okay. And how, this is actually a big country over here compared to some of the other countries throughout Australia, right? I mean, I think a lot of people view it as just, there's just one, but there's actually a lot of country and a lot of clans out here, aren't there?
Here, there are about, my clan is one of the 13 clan groups, the Gumach.
Okay. And so you've been working with Equatorial Launch Australia?
Yes, we have. Moment came for the scientists to come and talk to us. We just thought it would be a great idea to get something like this into looking at how our future.
Yeah, so so you see this is kind of a great future for the local people here.
It is. Absolutely, because the mine here won't last long in another case, and but seeing that we have talked to AILA and NASA about the rocket or the space center here, it brings that, especially about the town, if it is to fade away or die, we have hopes that it will stay alive.
So this is kind of the future, almost of working with other groups to take the next step for the people here.
The next step is it's the future, not only for the whole town and for whatever the potential of the scientists coming and working amongst the Yolngu people here, especially the Gumach.
Yep. Beautiful thing is, as you just said, right? Working with and amongst. It's not working for that. And this is I think the beauty of what's kind of being formed out at the Arnhem Space Center, right? Is not just space in Australia, not just space in the US, but space here, and that beauty of it.
That's right, because my tribe, the Gumatj, are always in the lookout for, and see what we can, utilize our country to be able to use it in a way that it can become, wise, kind of thoughts that we always have.
And so, you get to drive the economy drivers, and I think this is beautiful connection. I love standing amongst this beautiful, and we think about, connecting to the skies, right? And that's quite literally what is happening here.
That's right, because, we, with NASA and ELA, and this is the only way that we can work in collaboration with scientists as Yolngu people, because Yolngu people, especially us and another club, we tend to not forget about the stars in our kind of dreamings and all that.
And if you're just thinking, this is the first, obviously, of 3, but what is the hope for the future? Do you hope, and does your clan hope that this becomes just a bigger business industry, so you have multiple launches happening? And
if like NASA or ELA want to expand all this, we are happy.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think I'm obviously not Ngunnawal country down in cold Canberra, enjoying the beautiful warmth of the sun for once. And I think this is the thing, is being able to also have other people come and appreciate the beautiful country. People from the US and all over Australia, and I think as multiple launches happen, and is there that possibility of that bigger growth, not just for the science, but for learning about the place and the beautiful country out here?
Yes, especially with tourism. We the Gumatj people are in the early stages of tourism being out here, but other clan groups have opened them, and the Arnhem Space Centre here would be the ideal place for tourism in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I could just dream and think, and people from all over on school holidays saying, let's go up to the Arnhem Space Center and watch a rocket launch and enjoy the beautiful country up there.
And it's school holidays. And the kids are always asking me at my community, hey, Jawa, when do we go out and look at the rocket take off?
So is a lot of the come out and watch the launch from a safe distance?
Yeah, but better be in the safe distance rather than being in with the actual the launch.
Sometimes, yes, it's nice to appreciate beauty from afar
rather than being here in the middle of it.
Well, look, I think it's great that you opened everyone up to being here and working with you on developing this amazing, I think, potential for everyone, as we just said.
Yeah, but my is to the Northern Territory government, the Australian government, and even if I have to say thank you to the American government as well as.
Sometimes we have to.
Yeah.
And so, is there, on this process, has it been one that's taken a while, or does it happen overnight? I think people view it. Imagine it's taken some work.
It has taken time, especially with the consultations that have taken place with the local statutory body, the Northern Land Council. I have been to a couple of places, looked at the other communities and how this will affect those. But all of them have come back saying, all this.
I think this is great. It's that it is just really this country national effort to make this happen. And hopefully we'll see, a beautiful launch take place, one of many at the Arnhem Space Center.
But like I mentioned earlier, we're looking forward to all this, and especially my clan, the Gumatj.
And so there kind of is this excitement and buzz, I guess, across.
In the town of Nhulunbuy, everything's a buzz, Yirrkala, and Ski Beach, where I come from.
Okay. What I think about is a rocket taking off, going to Mars, connecting one beautiful red country to the red planet. And I think that's one of the potential that this site offers.
It is possible. If we have that feeling towards the potential of rockets going up to Mars,
This is the place.
This is the place.
And this may be the first start of that place.
This is only the beginning of a new beginning.
The new beginning. I love it.
Yep. Great to really chat to Jawa earlier in this launch. Now, as you may be hearing, the rain has returned. Now, this is not stopping the launch as of yet. Minutes and 35, almost 30 seconds from this launch. Now, one of the reasons why the rain sounds so heavy here is just the nature of the roof. It is not necessarily as pouring as it was, though I'm obviously inside and not outside in the wet rain. I will keep talking as loud as we can to keep going. Now, we are still at the countdown as we're going. This procedure, it all depends on the rain, and it all depends on what the wind is doing. The countdown is still going. They are still now just approaching 4 minutes. Now, hopefully this rain won't last very long. They may have to cut it. So generally, what they will do is pause at 3 minutes if there has to be due to small bits of rain. So we will keep going probably at least until 3 minutes. We'll tune into launch control to see is it delayed or not. Now, weather delay, the beauty of launching a rocket, it happens anywhere. It happens in Florida. It can happen anywhere. Look, if we're going to consider the positive, the rocket's going to be nice and clean. It's sounding very heavy in here. Now, people may have noticed I'm a tad excited by this. Now, my specialty is looking at stars that explode and how the universe evolves. Hey, the rain's stopping. There you go. That's the great thing about the weather. I am excited. I have never seen a rocket in person. I've seen videos. I've seen stuff happen from rockets launched into space. I've never seen it here personally. We're now just stopped at 3 minutes, so we will pause the counter. Now, again, this hold is purely due to the local weather. There hasn't been any changes in anything with the technical side of the rocket. There hasn't anything to do with the nature side of the rocket. And so, yeah, we will pause the countdown in a second, but we are on hold at 3 minutes. Reset the counter to 3 minutes, and this is purely due to the weather. Now, the great thing about the way the weather is happening here is it's not like there's a massive storm that is happening repeatedly. There does appear pockets of just rain coming about. So it's a mixture of rain, obviously, that they're worried about, but the wind. Now, 3-hour launch window. So we do still have plenty of time to see this. So as long as one of the things that will happen is there is a launch window, 3-hour launch window. So we do still have plenty of time to see this. So as long as the weather essentially subsides at some point, we'll be okay. Now, you can't really see. We can see a bit of the glow of the clouds and a bit of the glow of the rocket. But you do notice that there are some raindrops on the camera. Well, it is outside to catch launch. Just see the light bit of the base there. Now, again, for those who are just turning in, this is a sounding rocket. So the rocket is 22 meters in length. It's about 2 tons. The experiment measurement to look at the X-ray gas from our Milky Way galaxy. Now, one of the great things that we were able to do is to get up close to this rocket earlier today, and this was actually really momentous because, you know, to build a rocket, you don't just put it on a piece of dirt. There's a huge, what we call, launch pad. This is where the rocket launches from. This had to be bolted meters into the ground, had to be secure, because as that rail goes up, as it's already in its position, as the rocket is up and ready to go into its position, you need to make sure it is secure, that it is safe, and you need to make sure that gusts of wind don't knock it over. The last thing you want is a gust of wind or anything like that to knock it down. So one of the other parts that was yesterday was the full dress rehearsal. So we said the countdown started almost 8 hours ago. Now it's actually closer to 9 with these weather delays. Yesterday, there was a dress rehearsal. This is the process it takes to make sure everything is operating smoothly from a technical side, an engineering side, weather, safety, checks, you name it, they had to do it. And what was yesterday was as the rocket went from its vertical lying position to its, or horizontal lying position rather, to its vertical straight up and down position, all of the team, the ELA team, who was weeks nonstop to months and years, the NASA NASA team who has come out here, all 70 plus personnel from NASA Wallops facility, plus the science teams from University of Colorado and the University of Wisconsin who have been here for, again, weeks to make this happen. And they were finally able to come together. And so this was an amazing thing to be able to witness, to have everyone coming on site, to be able to see what it was like, and actually to see the rocket up close. And so previously recorded vision. So this is again from the end of the dress rehearsal yesterday when all of the teams were outside and everyone was excited to see, well, a rocket up close that was about to take off, because we resume the countdown. Again, we are on a 3-minute hold. They were excited to see it up close and personal.
So we're at the rocket launch site right behind, now into it. Obviously, the rocket starts lying down in the shed, gets into the launch position, vertical position. So what you have to do is obviously the rocket starts lying down in the shed, gets into the launch position, ready for takeoff. So we're at the dress rehearsal now, but it'll be put into position to launch, and soon it will take off.
So that was a little bit of the rocket up close, but we have actually plenty of vision that we shot from near it. Now, the rocket, as we were kind of seeing when we went into fold, this is the facility where the instruments are stored. There are multiple stages to the rocket. So you first have the bottom rocket motor, the workhorse of the rocket. This is, when you think of rocket, this is that bit. This is the engine that obviously will take it into space and go from there. Now, there are a number of people squeezed in this room. Now, we're obviously not there now because, well, they're a little bit busy with this weather. Now, you're also starting to get a feel from the side on this beautiful red dirt. You know, this is, I think, that unique feel of Australia is you have the beautiful red earth beneath us. And I kind of like that idea that one day in the future, we may leaving this beautiful red dirt, going to the beautiful red dirt of Mars, for instance. Now, as you're actually seeing that building on the left, that's where we're broadcasting from. Down the road, you can see the rail just in that previous shot of where the rocket was. Now, this is what it's like right now. Obviously, we're in the nighttime, but this is the position of the vertical position. So it comes out of the housing, moving from that horizontal to vertical position, being locked into place. And it really was momentous yesterday when all of to get there and see it up close and personal. You know, when you have a rocket launch, there is a huge amount of people who have to make it. You have the engine, you have the motor, as you're seeing. So you have the rocket on the left, or the right rather, the gantry, the support structure on the left. You have the science payload, as you're seeing in the middle, going to. This is the bit of the rocket that makes the rocket what it is. And some of the people you're seeing are these people who have been working nonstop, weeks to months in some cases, making sure of it. Sometimes you have to get underneath the pier of the rocket to make sure everything's working. And it is a smooth sailing operation. Now, we are in a T-minus 3-minute hold. Again, we are purely in a weather delay hold. Now, time of place, rather, where we're in the dry season. This is supposed to be where the 28 to 30 degrees Celsius every day and stays like that. That is not the case right now. That is the good thing. When the weather is resumed to be stable again, they will initiate the rest of the count. This is purely because all of the other checks are here. Everything else is ready to go. We're only waiting for the one thing that no one can control, but everyone is the weather. You know, one of the things I get to be asked all the time as an astronomer, I use telescopes to look up is, well, can you look through clouds? No. There are so many weather anomalies, we'll call it anomaly, that rain, storms. In this case, it is the gusting wind that is blowing in with this rain. Now, again, it has stopped, but there does need to be enough stability to make sure that it is in the. You can see on the camera there are a few raindrops on it. Again, keeping in mind this camera is outside because we budgeted for the dry season, not the wet season as it's apparently turned into this afternoon. But nonetheless, once it is deemed safe.
Copy that.
So we have just started count again. That's why we want to see. Now, that is the amazing thing of being in the operations center is when you deem the weather's good, we are good to go. So now we are resume count. We are ready to go. And as long as we don't get another storm, we're going to see a rocket launch. Now, what we will be doing is for go soon to see the rocket launch. So we're going to stay mostly on these shots near the launch pad for the launch taking off, and then obviously as far as we can see it. So as of now, the weather seems stable enough that we're good to go. We've just approached less. We are on track, so we're minute 45.
Copy hold, copy hold.
So we've just started another home. We'll see what that is about. Now, again, everything is just making sure that the weather conditions here are stable enough for it. Look, you know, it's no good just to open all your presents once. You want a little bit of anticipation. Well, you're getting it here tonight. We said it'd be history in the making. Making sure you're earning it by staying tuned to watch this. We do have the current problems with winds. This is where we're at. The official hold time is going to be 2:01. So this is going to be our official time. We will set the count based on that. We're just making sure everything's syncing together. So we're at a 2 minute and 1 second hold. Now we will keep on that. We will stay at 2 minutes and 1 second until we resume it 3 minutes. Right now, everything they're doing is just making sure the winds are cooperating. So again, for those who are just tuning in, hoping that the rocket has already taken off, we've been dealing with some during the dry season up here in the Northern Territory, waiting for it to, well, subside essentially. Now, as of now, the winds are not, but they are out of tolerance for the rocket. So what that means is there is enough gust that the rocket is swaying too much. Now, as we were seeing in those previous shots, and the rocket is mounted to the gantry, and that has to be stable. Now, because of the wind, they're going to reset to 3 minutes. And again, this is all part of the normal process. And again, the only thing stopping us right now is wind and storm. So for us in Australia, absorb all of the bad weather here so that we can see this rocket launch and this rocket takeoff. And again, I mean, you know, we are all excited to see this historic first commercial, excited to see NASA's first commercial launch from anywhere. So we will be monitoring the weather. They will be staying it. And as soon as, again, the winds are in that tolerable range. So what they're worried about, again, is the gusts back and forth. That is the real worry here. This is going to be what is going to prevent or start our count. Now we have a plenty of time. We have a 3-hour launch window. Now, the launch ends, so there is not necessarily that much of a worry for the rocket not taking off, so to speak. But we're just waiting for that wind to die down. And once the team at Launch Control Center, that's the building kind of behind us, that will be essentially pressing that button. Once they are ready to go, that 0 mark. When we hit 0 and we see the rocket launch, that's what 0 mark. When we hit 0 and we see the rocket launch, that's what we all want. That's what I want. That's what you want. That's what the team here wants. You know, there are scientists to go up and launch and get their data. And, you know, they've been hanging around for a long time. They've been long for a bit. What we are seeing is really what the science we can expect from some of these missions. Kevin. And so Kevin is one of the mission scientists that we were able to see and talk to about why did Australia come, or why did they want to do their science, and why did NASA come to see this rocket launch, do their science, and why are they setting up here? So we're going to try and go see Kevin again. Again, this is pre-recorded vision, and Kevin is relaxed a bit because right now he's on the 2nd and 3rd mission for the first launch to happen so he can see his second and third launch.
If there's a little bit of risk in there, you can actually create an arc that goes across the small amount of gas. It'll act like a conductor.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then things can break down and melt. So if there's a little bit of residual gas in there, you can actually create an arc that goes across the conductor.
Yeah.
And if that happens, then
we're now resuming the count. This is the beauty of trying to launch a rocket in the dry land.
So there are all sorts of inhibits on
winds
here
have
to
been
not
deemed to
let
be
the
with. They're now
vacuum.
going to resume it.
In fact, we actually,
and
during
now,
flight,
if it's going
we
to be
we take this,
so
when
far
we're
on track.
Arming the vehicle, we take this plate off. And
Everyone who
put a
has
little cheater
been
plug in there
staying up for the
that allows it
stream,
to
appreciate
open
it.
that circuit, so it will turn on in flight no matter what.
I am dedicated to seeing this launch happen. I will be here till we get this launch happen. You will be here till we get this launch happen, because that's what everyone wants. Now, we are resuming as we were. And as of now, the winds seem to be deemed in the safety range. We're just double checking that aside. But this is the official. If nothing changes, we're only a minute 50 from our very first launch. So if we go back outside to what the rocket is looking at right now, there will still be some raindrops on the screen. Not surprising. Unfortunately, there is not much we can do at this point. But we have plenty of camera shots that will see it. And we will see the launch take place from here. We will also see the further panned out cameras. And so this is going to be our wide shot that you can see. You can see the base of the rocket glowing at the bottom. We're a minute 23. And you can really start to feel the buzz and excitement now. Everyone hitting me. I'm being abandoned ship because everyone's going outside to see a rocket launch. This is going to happen. We are just now a minute 10 from Australia's first commercial launch that we have seen. You know, everyone running outside, NASA employees, government representatives, the ELA team. Just popped up again, unfortunately. So we're holding now at 58 seconds. We will see if we resume this countdown. You know, this wind, I'd never hear of wind again. I'm going to tell you this right now. So we will reset. We're holding at 58 seconds. Let's hope that the winds keep down enough. So we're going to reset now to process that. Once the winds are deemed too high, we have to reset to the 3-minute clock. Now, unfortunately, this is because once the rocket is launched, it obviously has to take off. So the worry about the winds is not just for the rocket itself on the launch pad. It is for as it goes, obviously, into its orbit. As it's blowing it around too much, it could be blown too far off course. It can limit the payload being reached into orbit, and this creates a lot of problems. So we're going to restart the countdown back minutes. Luckily, we're not going past 3 minutes at this point. It's just a wind problem. We're going to stay at 3 minutes for now, and as soon as we can, we will resume the count. Now, appreciate everyone being so patient with us. You know, this is the weather. This is what life is like when you're trying to launch a rocket. You know, hey, they say it's rocket science. In fact, on the back of the bottle, it is just rocket. But what we're doing is we are just waiting. We'll stay on these shots, obviously, for the wide shots. Do you want to? So, but what we're going to try and do is at least get a sneak we were talking to earlier, was excited by. Sorry, we are just trying to make the right 3 minutes. Oh, thank God, I need a drink.
And if that happens, then things can break down and melt quickly.
I can imagine that.
So, so there are all sorts of inhibits on here to not let the detector turn on if it's not at high vacuum. During flight, we take this when we're arming the vehicle. We take this plate off and put a little cheater plug in there that allows it to override that circuit, so no matter what.
Oh, okay.
But then it's very dicey, because if somebody accidentally turns it on, it would be very bad.
Yeah.
So it's like it's only held safe by humans at that point.
So the telescope is here?
That's right. So the telescope starts here. It points out this way. This is.
Oh yeah.
If you see, it's on a thread here.
Yep.
And there's a hinge down here.
Yep.
And in flight, on a timer, this motor will run and open the door this way.
Okay.
And look out, and the telescope will look out.
Yeah. So
at the
essentially, this is the bay door that is maximum.
Telescope will look out.
Yeah. So
at the
essentially, this is the bay door that opens up, and then you're looking out this way.
That's right. Yeah.
So then the telescope is.
That's right.
Yeah,
It takes up the whole thing.
Yeah. I assume that was it.
It's a full half-meter mirror, which is so the diameter here is 20 and a half inches.
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's as big as we could possibly go. We wanted to make these measurements of Alpha Cent, and we realized that we couldn't have done it with previous technology that you could have put on. Okay, well actually, if we use these advanced technologies, we can build this instrument that will have throughput 15 times greater than what we'd ever been able to do before, and we can actually do that.
Yeah.
And so we just built it all together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, look, so far it seems like it's tracking well, at least.
Yeah. This is also the second test science flight to observe an F-type star in November of last year.
From White Sands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
NASA did not want this to be the first flight of.
Yes.
They wanted payloads that had a high probability of scientific success.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I completely understand.
Yeah. No, you don't want 3 missions that go up and don't give data because.
That's right. Big investment, and so we wanted to make sure that we got the bang for the buck.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? I mean, because it has not just been you guys coming here; it has been
the whole
everything.
enterprise. Yeah, exactly. Which has been fantastic.
With the individual experiment, right? In terms of, especially operating from the U.S., we're here for these 3 missions.
Exactly. Yeah, and when we launch in the U.S., we basically just plugging our experiment into a procedure undertaking, and so we wanted to make sure that we'd work the kinks out.
Yeah, no, I understand. Did you get data on the first flight?
It was beautiful. Yeah, grad student now is back at home writing the paper on
nice.
that.
Cool, awesome.
Just seen, we have resumed the count, and that is because yes, the winds have now become again. So we're going to try and see if we can do this again. And I appreciate. I need a drink. I'm only unfortunately drinking water because my voice is very sore. But you can do as much as you want at home. Hopefully we don't have to go back to that 3-minute game. So we are 70 seconds away from the launch. We will be going outside as you're seeing now to see this. So as long as the wind's stable for the next 2 minutes essentially, or at least the next minute, launching off. Now, I know I've said that before. So we are officially now under the minute count. We are still going. So we are still at 44 seconds, as you're seeing. So we will stay outside for the shots. We will keep it as much as we can. And we are going to see from Australia. 30 seconds. Now, the fact that we are having a rocket take off from Australia is just as... I cannot wait to see this rocket take off. So we have now held again. So I am sorry for this fun game. I'm playing a trick on you. The winds are playing a trick on us. We were so close. We were so close. We will get there again, but we will see. So we are on hold. If it go back to 3 minutes, if it's something like that. So we are going back to 3 minutes yet again. For those who suggested drinking every time you hear 3 minutes, I suggest taking a drink as well. Now, I'm obviously just drinking water, but in order to wet my whistle, so I'm going to keep being with you until we sing take off. Look, at least we're getting closer every time, right? Slowly inching and inching and inching. And look, again, this is quite uncharacteristic. This is the dry season of the Northern Territory. Rain, we are not really expecting wind. And I'm trying to keep up to date with all your comments. I could be playing a trick on you. We could just be looping this. We could be a slight Truman Show type thing. But no, this is real. The rocket is still on the launch pad to launch. We are just holding for T-minus 3 minutes and waiting for the winds to go. And I'm kind of actually just being laughed at this point. 1 second. Oh, in countdown, we're not. So again, this is just all allowed for the wind variation on the rocket relative to the gantry. So we're just checking on the timing to make sure. Yeah, so we're still going to be at 3 minutes. It is rocket science, it is weather, it is patience, it is excitement, it is everything. Thank you for everyone for staying with us. Again, so our launch window, we had a 3-hour, still have plenty of time in this launch window. And I am going to be here until we see a rocket launch. I am not leaving this room until I am strapped to something. Maybe it's someone dragging me out. We are seeing a rocket take off tonight. We are excited. We are ready. We will get the weather cooperating. So we're going. Official count, we're just being informed. We did get to officially 8 seconds, but we had to restart to 3 minutes. And again, this is all just the... So we're just doing...
Copy that, confirming balloon test. Thank you.
So we're just decided. So what they're doing is a balloon test. So now the idea here is they actually want to just make sure they test that higher level wind to make sure it's all performing as expected. Because again, the winds, it's all about the safety. It's all about that. So now because of this, because they want to be secure that they know what the wind's doing, that they know that the wind is going to be stable, we're going to unfortunately have to go back to a longer countdown. So we're now going to go back to T-minus 10-minute countdown. We're going backwards in time. Now, this is purely to make sure that what it's doing, that it is cooperating, and that we're doing it. So yes, so those who are saying that we're going to be doing a balloon test, we are going to be setting it up. All of you who are keeping their kids up to watch this, I live in Canberra, which is a half-hour behind in a very cold place. I know my kids are watching right now, so you know what? Stay up. It's can deal with you in the morning. It's not my problem. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be waiting. This is a momentous occasion. This is Australia. This is history. And, you know, we're going to be waiting here. Now, one of the things that we were going to do is it was great to be able to see and interview some of the people on site. We were able to see the science. Yep. So what we're doing, so just getting the official text. So we're going to still stay at the T-minus 3 countdown. So that's the official countdown. And the way procedure starts is we're just waiting for, and again, this is what we're doing is NASA's going to be launching a balloon up, getting ready to test those higher level winds. And so what we're really waiting for, cooperating. Look, and for those who, maybe this is your first launch, maybe this is your 100th. This is common. We often get weather delays for places. One of the great reasons why people wanted Space Center is because hopefully you can get something called the dry season. Well, the dry season is making every single person at the facility work for this launch to make sure what is going to happen when that rocket launch happen. And this journey has been happening for a long time. And we caught up with Michael earlier in the day, who is the chairman and CEO of he really was instrumental in getting this facility to happen. And hearing the story about how you go from idea of building a rocket to now getting a rocket almost ready to launch. We're almost ready to launch. It's a kind of an amazing story. And so that story, the interview that we had a chat with Michael, and because it's an important one, when we think about where we are, how remote we are, what this vision is, it means a lot, not just for EO, for Australia as well. And this is a sort of amazing thing to happen. So look, we are going to earn it. We're going to make it. And yeah, for those who are counting, when we get to those finals, I'm going to be louder than anyone can tolerably imagine because I'm going to be excited to see the final 10 seconds happen. Now, so we are, as we said, in this T-minus 3 minute, but we're in this hold for a few minutes while NASA launches a weather balloon. Now, unfortunately, we just don't have any vision or data from that, so we will wait to hear until NASA says so. But we are going to catch up with Michael, who we interviewed earlier.
Hi. I'm Michael Jones, the Executive Chairman and Chief Executive of Equatorial Launch Australia. And tonight, we're doing Australia's first space launch from here in Arnhem Land. So watch this be the first commercial rocket launched into space from Australia and the first time that NASA has ever launched from a commercial spaceport ever.
So, here with Michael, I'd say a momentous occasion today is a small way of describing it.
Yep, every interview so far has asked me how's the excitement level. Have had no excitement, just been too busy. Starting to get a little bit of a vibe of today's the day. So the excitement level is increasing a bit.
For the past few months, this process has been quite literally years in the making.
This has been an exercise of 7,000 cuts.
Yeah.
We submitted the start of our launch license about almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
That's been a long, arduous process. The building of the site here and doing anything in a remote location is challenging. And of course, if you're going to be in an industry and one that's really sort of nice and simple like space. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need any sort of technology
No,
involved at all.
that's right. And you don't need to find people who know anything.
Exactly.
Right? So, so we've had some challenges, and it's been, you know, despite like feeling on occasions that every roadblock in the world's been put in front of us, you know, we've got here, it's a great day, and you know, we are starting to get excited about it.
And it's a buzz that you're starting to see amongst, as I said, not just you, but everyone who seems to be working here. You know, there are people who have been, you know, we were talking to someone who's been working here on site for the past, 12 weeks. He's like, I just want to get to that moment.
Yeah, I don't think we did it on purpose, but I think what you do is you leverage what the end game is all the way through these things. So everybody want to get to the end, and I want to see, you know, what this is all about. And what's a really interesting dynamic is the mix of, you know, the 70 good at what they do.
I mean, and they're so regimented and, I mean, rehearsed.
Some could say inflexible, but let's just say they're very structured in what they do.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, we're here, we're sponges. We're trying to soak up every bit that we can from them, and you could not want, as a startup company, to have a better launch customer, pardon the pun. You know, it's pretty conversations without, you know, working in this space and the launch customer.
But that's part of the job. That's the beauty of the job, right? Is the puns.
So we, you know, we couldn't have a better customer to start off with because of skill and just their generosity of passing on information and working with us. And at the end of the day, you know, there's this one guy who has to finally decide that guy looks like me. So, so I have to remind them of that occasionally.
and it's also not the responsibility just to the people on the site or NASA or the science payloads. It's the entire community, as you know, we've talked about, who's been invested in this.
Huge span of stakeholders from the different traditional owner and the payloads are landing back on their land, so we have to coordinate with them. And there's then the absolute transport, aviation, maritime.
First commercial launch in Australia.
Last sort of 12 months, talking to all the major players in the space world. And this is our coming out party in a big way. And in space is a big state. And I think that there are a lot of other great Australian companies in space.
There is.
But, you know, doing satellites.
Who will hopefully have another launch this year. That's right.
And Myota.
The beauty of it is this is Australia's going to become.
You know, and common challenges. So we try to help each other out where we can. And I'm a big believer in, you know, the sum of the parts.
We have a first launch tonight.
Yep.
What do you think Arnhem Space Center looks like in 10 years?
Well, where we're standing at the moment is on what I would call, which gives us the ability to do medium-sized rockets. So up to about 450 to 500 kilos in payload. The rocket itself sitting on kilos, sitting on the so reasonably large. This is Site 1. Immediately, you know, a kilometre, you know, to our east here is Site 2. There's 24 pads on. It has to be very carefully planned. Countdown. We started the countdown at 8 hours before launch. There's a whole bunch of activity. All extraneous, non-required people are off-site for safety, but they're working through the checks. They're rehearsing, you know, as they have external communications as well. So airspace, maritime, local emergency services, coordinating with security, just talking to everybody else on site as to what's...
Because it's still a rocket, that's the thing.
Absolutely. You know, we're about to fire a projectile that's going 300 kilometres into space.
T-minus 3 minutes, have the weather balloon go up, test the local winds. Because again, what we're worried about, so these balloons obviously can go tens of kilometers into orbit to actually test what is the winds above and below. But now the key here is the whole rocket. In order to do that, they need to test up to as high as they possibly can to make sure. Now, for those who asked, we cannot go near the rocket site. No one can go near it that close where this camera is. It is closer even than people cleaning it. We will just deal with it as is. Some of the other shots are a little bit better. Needs to make those decisions, on the it's going to go over southwest Arnhem Land, so you have to be close in order to see it. If you are not in the vicinity, you won't see it. You've been with us this long on the live stream. You're going to be with us to the end, and I appreciate it. We love you. I love you. Speedy rocket launch tonight. We still do have time in the launch window. Now, there is a limit to this launch window, but we're still in the time of it, so it's fine. We will just wait for before we resume our T-3 countdown. Look, when we got to that T-8 seconds, oh, we were feeling like it was going to take off, weren't we? This room was electric. So we will wait till we're there. We're going to be with you. Now, one of the things that we've explored and one of the things that we really have seen with this is how do you export in a remote part of Australia? And the history of Equatorial Launch Australia is an amazing one. The history of this a rocket to here with a contract from NASA ready to go is an amazing story. You know, and I'm surrounded by people in this room who I know have been spinning this task. And look, they want to go as much as you, probably more than you, no offense, because they've been working for so long to see it, and they're waiting for it to happen. Standing outside in the rain just to wait it. There is passion, there is dedication from the entire team here, down the launch site, and all across it. And this is part of the Launch Australia and this history to make it happen. And we're going to take a look at it real quick. We're going to take a look at that, of the story of ELA and how we've kind of gotten to today. Look, at this point, if people just want to chime in, sure, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Michael Jones, Chairman and Chief Executive of Equatorial Launch Australia. And tonight, we're doing Australia's first space launch from here in Arnhem Land. So watch this coverage and you will see the first commercial...
Sorry, we were playing the wrong clip real quick. We're going to load the right clip in a second. People are still waiting for the launch. We have people around the site getting ready to go. It does appear that the rain has stopped. It is the wind, and as some people are noting, it is the wind at higher altitudes. The wind does increase as you get to those higher layers. Weather is variable, so even if you're in other parts of Arnhem Land or even Nolan the weather may be very different from where we are inland, and that is always the key, is you need the weather at the site to do it. And look, we appreciate everyone's patience. We appreciate everyone staying with us. You know, this is the first commercial launch in Australia. This is the first NASA point. And believe it or not, this is our first broadcast of a commercial space launch. Now, we have a dedicated, great team that is working with me who has been tired of listening to me more almost than you for this launch to happen. But they are here. We are going to make it happen. And now we do have the clip ready to go of the history of ELA.
Equatorial Launch Australia is and is aspiring to be the premier multi-user commercial spaceport in the world.
The company was founded and established in 2015 and it's sort of spent the first couple of years determining the best location, and that's why we are where we are. It avails us of a whole range of astrophysical and orbital options. And then in 2019, we were contracted by NASA, launching from the Southern Hemisphere, and specifically from Equatorial Launch Australia, launching from the Southern Hemisphere, and specifically site in Arnhem Land.
Equatorial Launch Australia and NASA go for launch right here in the... These rockets will go some 250 kilometres into the sky to collect data on the physics of the sun and its relationship with the Earth. It's about to younger Australians and indeed Australians of any age who might be looking at retraining for future careers of how important science is.
We will commence the operation of Phase 2, which will continue the development of the Arnhem Space Centre to allow much larger and much higher frequency of operations.
And you know what? We're back on count. Yes! So, we are now T-minus 140 and counting. As long as those winds stay away, we are going to see this rocket launch. Now, I'm sounding like a broken record, but this is okay. We are staying with it. As of now, the winds seem to be as cooperating. And you know what? The beauty of it is a little bit of wind and a little bit of time has dried out our camera downrange. So we are now going to be approaching the 7 mark. So 1 minute, 10 seconds left to go. And so as we go, we were going to stay in this count. We got to 8 seconds last time, and then we had to wait. So we did approach the 1 minute mark. We are still on track. Yep, so we are still down. We're getting close. We are getting close to Australia's first commercial rocket launch, NASA's first launch anywhere. And I can tell when we're getting close because everyone abandons me right at the key time. That's when you know we're ready to go. But there are a few of us here to the bitter end, ready to go to see this. We're at 30. 20. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Yeah! My camera. Been a better time for this all to happen. Now, obviously, we cannot see the rocket anymore. That's okay. What we are doing is we are just getting outside, set up for any outside shot. Oh, that was beauty. I felt the building was about to explode when that shockwave. It was a little bit louder than the rain. So It was a pretty amazing thing. It was